Real ones know there's always been two types of rappers, the ones who rap about the street and the ones who are actually from them. And most of the time, those two things look exactly the same from the outside. But every now and then, you start digging into somebody's background and you realize this guy wasn't playing a character. The ones where the body count runs deep into double digits. And if you think King Von was a demon, I'm gonna surprise you, but these are demon bosses in the flesh. And trust me, you're gonna wanna stick around until the end, because by the time we get there, these rap animals get so violent that Sinister looks like a sweet boy. Big L. Let's start with Harlem, because before drill even existed, before King Von was old enough to hold a pistol, 139th Street and Lenox Avenue had already produced its own nightmare. Now Big L is one of the greatest rappers to ever do it. That part isn't debatable. The man had Jay-Z shook in a freestyle battle. Cameron, Mace, Lord Finesse, all of them said the same thing. He was the guy. By 1999, he was in talks with Rockefeller, and the whole world was about to finally see what Harlem already knew. But here's what gets left out of the legend. Big L wasn't just rapping about street life from a safe distance. According to police investigators, he was allegedly running a very specific hustle on the side. He would point out drug dealers who were holding heavy to a robbery crew, dealers he knew personally from the neighborhood, and those guys would do the stick-up. Big L was basically the inside man. Now you tell me what happens when the wrong person finds out you've been setting up people from the block you grew up on. His older brother Leroy, known as Big Lee, was connected to a notorious Harlem crew and was sitting in prison at the time. And investigators believe that whatever friction came out of those street dealings, combined with his brother's enemies, is what made somebody decide it was time. On February 15th, 1999, Big L was standing outside his building at 45 West 139th Street. Someone drove up and put 9 bullets into his face and chest. He was 24 years old, didn't make it to the hospital. Police eventually arrested his childhood friend, Gerard Woodley. And here's the thing that makes this so crazy. Woodley wasn't just some random dude. He was close enough to Big L that he was literally photographed on the back cover of Big L's debut album. They grew up together. The case got dropped because there weren't enough witnesses willing to say anything, and prosecutors decided to focus on a separate gun charge that was already building against Woodley. But this is where the story gets truly insane. Law enforcement sources said Woodley was suspected in not just Big L's murder, but 4 other homicides on top of that, 4 additional bodies. This man was allegedly walking around Harlem carrying 5 separate murder cases, and nobody could ever make any of them stick. Then in June 2016, 17 years after Big L died, someone put a bullet in Woodley's head right outside his building at 106 West 139th Street, same block, literally steps away from where Big L took his last breath. No arrests in that case either. Big L's brother Leroy was killed in 2002. The same streets took him too. His own brother Donald said publicly that Lamont was no saint, and that's about as close as we've ever gotten to a straight answer from the family. What exactly was happening behind the scenes that never got documented anywhere? We'll probably never know the full picture. But when the guy who allegedly killed you was himself suspected of 5 murders, and the block you both lived on kept collecting people for decades, you start to understand that whatever was going on was way deeper than most people ever discuss. Big L was the greatest rapper Harlem ever produced, and the block he came from was one of the deadliest in New York City history. Both things were true at the same time. Now that's Harlem in the 90s. But a decade later, in Texas, of all places, a teenager decided to take the concept of "I don't care about consequences" to a level that genuinely makes your jaw drop. Tay K. In 2016, at 16, he organized a home invasion in Mansfield, Texas. The target was robbery, but the homeowner, Ethan Walker, 21 years old, got shot and killed in the middle of it. Tay K didn't pull the trigger personally, but prosecutors said he put the whole thing together and recruited the man who did. That man got life. Tay K was charged as an adult and given house arrest while he waited for trial, but he decided he ain't settling for that and cut the ankle monitor off. He was on the run for 3 months, and while he was a fugitive, wanted for his connection to a murder, he went to the studio and recorded The Race, a music video showing him posing next to his own wanted poster. The song charted on Billboard, went platinum, and crossed 100 million YouTube views, all while this kid was legally a fugitive. But here's the part nobody put in the Wikipedia article. While he was on the run, Tay K allegedly committed another murder. According to prosecutors in San Antonio, in 2017, he and a group lured a 23-year-old photographer named Mark Anthony Saldivar into a car under the pretense of a photo shoot. Once Saldivar was inside, they robbed him at gunpoint for his camera equipment and then shot and killed him, a fugitive for murder, making a hit record and allegedly killing somebody in the process. The U.S. Marshals caught up to him the day after the Race video dropped. In 2019, he was convicted of murder in the Walker case, receiving 55 years behind bars. His lawyers said he didn't know anybody was going to get killed and that he wasn't the one who fired the gun. In April 2025, he was convicted of murder again for Saldivar, 80 more years on top. But Tay K was 16 years old, already running home invasions and armed robberies. What was going on before Ethan Walker? Well, we can only guess, but rumors say he's catched 7 additional bodies before these public ones. Now, straight from Texas, let's move to Jacksonville, because this city doesn't get the same national attention as Chicago or New York when people talk about drill culture. And what's happening down there for years makes some of those other cities look lame by comparison. Queso. Queso came up on the east side of Jacksonville, affiliated with ATK, which stands for Ace's Top Killers. The most prominent name in ATK was Yungeen Ace, one of Jacksonville's biggest rappers. His father, Abdul Robinson Sr., was allegedly the operational head of the gang, and his brother Hakeem was allegedly the one doing the work. According to prosecutors, in February 2019, Queso shot and killed a 16-year-old named Adrian Gaynor, known in the neighborhood as Bibby. Then in January 2020, he allegedly killed Charles McCormick Jr., 23 years old, known as Lil Buck. Two separate murders tied to an ongoing street war between ATK and the rival KTA faction that had Julio Fulio as its most famous member. What made the trial genuinely wild was the way it unraveled. His own father, Abdul Robinson Sr., the man prosecutors described as the gang's leader, sat down in a police interrogation room and told investigators that his son was the one who did it.
You watched that video of the murder of Charles McCormick. Did you recognize the shooter?
Yes, sir.
Who was the shooter in that video?
Hakeem Robinson.
Your son, Yungeen Robinson?
Yes, sir.
And while he was sitting in Duval County Jail waiting on trial, Queso kept releasing music videos that referenced the killings with enough specificity that his lawyers were visibly uncomfortable every time a new one came out. They argued the lyrics proved nothing. Prosecutors argued they proved everything. In July 2025, the jury came back with a sentence of being guilty of capital murder. But here's the part that puts the whole Jacksonville situation into perspective. The same gang war that produced Queso also produced the murder of Julio Fulio in Tampa in June 2024. Fulio, the face of the rival side, was ambushed in a hotel parking lot on his birthday weekend. 3 men stepped out of a car and opened up on him with assault rifles and a handgun. 4 people are currently facing potential death sentences for that. The number of people killed in the feud between these two Jacksonville crews over 6 or 7 years runs deep into double digits. Queso caught the conviction, but the streets on both sides lost a whole lot of people before anybody ever saw the inside of a courtroom. Atlanta is a different kind of story, because down there the most dangerous people don't always make the most noise. Some of them move so quiet you almost forget they're there until you can't ignore them anymore. Lil Marlo. Lil Marlo, legal name Rudolph Johnson, was born in 1990 and raised in Bowen Homes, one of the most violent public housing projects Atlanta has ever had. The place was eventually demolished in 2009 after years of relentless killings, but Marlo grew up inside it from the very beginning. He used to call Bankhead and the Bowen projects the home of the murderers and them drug dealers, not as a flex, just as a description of where he was from. In 2017, he linked up with Lil Baby and got signed to Quality Control Music, same label as Migos. He put out First and Third in 2020 with Future, Gucci Mane, and Lil Baby on it. He was getting real traction. People who knew him said the music was supposed to be his way out, but Marlo never actually left the neighborhood. His lawyer and longtime friend said it publicly right after his death.
But who is to say what Marlo would have been today?
Yeah.
People don't always hit on the first or second try. Sometimes you get it. You learn and you grow and you hear things, and maybe he would have made some shift.
On July 11th, 2020, just before midnight, police responded to what looked like a single car accident on I-285 near Atlanta. When they got to the car, they found Marlo inside it, shot to death. He'd been hit while he was driving. Investigators said immediately it looked targeted. He was 30 years old, father of 3 kids, and had just left a block party in Bankhead earlier that night. As of 2026, the case is still open. Nobody arrested, nobody charged. Now here's what most people outside Atlanta don't know. Marlo wasn't just another rapper in the city. In the actual neighborhood he grew up in, the people who knew him described him as the head of his faction. Documentaries covering the Atlanta gang scene from that era have referred to him as the Don of his crew, and said that his murder lit the fuse on a serious wave of retaliatory violence in the city that became known as the 4L versus 3L conflict. Was he personally responsible for bodies? Nothing got proven in a courtroom, nothing ever got charged, but a man who was born in Bowen Homes, ran with that crew for 30 years, and ended up shot to death on a highway with 0 witnesses willing to say anything? The answer to that question is probably well beyond 0. The people who know the actual number aren't talking. His dad is still waiting for answers, and the city hasn't given him any. Now, next is the case where the gap between the public image and what was allegedly happening in the background is genuinely one of the most shocking things in recent rap history. Chef G. Chef G was the founding father of Brooklyn Drill, the man who, more than anybody else, made that sound go national. By 2023, he had Gold Records, a major label deal with RCA, his own label, a sold-out tour with Sleepy Hollow. In May 2024, he was on stage at a Trump campaign rally in the South Bronx. 2 weeks before that appearance, he'd been out on a $1.5 million bail on a 140-count gang indictment. In May 2023, Brooklyn prosecutors indicted 32 alleged members of the 8 Trey Crips and their affiliate with the Nine Ways. Chef G was the lead defendant defendant, and what prosecutors described wasn't just a rapper with street ties. They alleged he had been routing money directly from his music career into funding and directing actual shootings. The case centered on a drive-by in October 2020 in Prospect Lefferts Gardens that killed Theodore Sniper Sr., 23 years old, and wounded 5 other people. About an hour after the shooting, according to prosecutors, Chef G sent a text message asking if the hit had connected. When he got confirmation that it had, he allegedly organized an 11-person celebration dinner at a high-end Manhattan steakhouse. Then he allegedly handed the shooter a custom gold chain as a personal trophy for the kill. His own sister Crystal was allegedly part of the conspiracy, but what was confirmed is that he was picking up and dropping off the shooters himself. In March 2025, he pleaded guilty to attempted murder and conspiracy. Prosecutors were pleading for 20 years, but he went away with just 5. Brooklyn's DA said publicly that notoriety couldn't protect him. He checked into his cell in October 2025. A guy that stood on stage with Trump just a few months before was now allegedly the deadliest hitman in Brooklyn. With good behavior, he could be out as early as 2028, but even then, he's got 5 more years of supervised release waiting on the other side of those prison doors. Next guy on our list was eating before Chef G even picked up a mic, and his actual story went deeper into the streets than almost anything we've talked about so far. Casanova. Casanova was born and raised in Brooklyn, first locked up at 18 on Rikers Island, where he became cellmates with a teenager named A$AP Rocky, both of them in the system at the same time. One of them went on to be a Rock Nation artist and star in movies. The other one went a different way entirely, specifically killing people. Casanova built himself up into a real artist in the mid-2000s, got signed to Rock Nation, was charting on Billboard, had genuine commercial potential, and the kind of street credibility that was hard to manufacture. People in New York rap during that era said the man had real star quality. But in December 2020, federal prosecutors came out with a sweeping RICO indictment against 18 people connected to the untouchable Gorilla Stone Nation, a Bloods-affiliated gang operating in New York City and upstate New York. Casanova was the one name on that list the FBI couldn't immediately find. 17 of the other defendants were already in custody when the announcement came out. The Bureau put out a public statement saying they were still looking for him. He turned himself in 2 days later. The indictment covered murders, drug operations, gun cases, and then this part nobody really talked about enough: COVID relief fraud. Members of the gang had allegedly filed fraudulent unemployment claims using stolen identities while people were struggling through the pandemic. That's a layer of cold that takes a second to absorb. Casanova wasn't charged in the specific murder in the indictment, which involved a 15-year-old killed in Poughkeepsie, but a later superseding indictment added an attempted murder charge from a 2020 incident outside a Miami nightclub. Prosecutors alleged that when a man threw what they called the wrong gang sign in his direction, Casanova asked him, "You want to die tonight?" and then an associate opened fire, wounding 2 people. In May 2022, he pleaded guilty to racketeering and drug charges, admitted to being a gang leader, the Florida shooting, a robbery in New York, and trafficking over 100 kilos of marijuana. In June 2023, he was sentenced to 15 years and 8 months in federal prison. The judge called him a leader of a vicious street gang and a magnet for gang violence. His lawyers pointed to his upbringing and asked for leniency, but Judge was not moved. He got 15 years in federal prison, and his life looks like the music thing was just concomitant to his street life, not the other way around. Now let's go back to Jacksonville one more time, because you have to understand the city produced multiple layers of this story all at once, and you can't tell the full picture without getting into the names that are still out there. Spinabenz. Spinabenz was a dude from the east side of Jacksonville, affiliated with a crew called 1200. His music was hyper-local, the kind of stuff that didn't travel outside Duval County, but absolutely hit if you knew the context. In 2021, he linked up with Yungeen Ace, Fast Money Goon, and his own brother Wapawit Da Chopper on Who I Smoke, a song that sampled Vanessa Carlton's 1,000 Miles and mixed a bright pop melody with lyrics naming specific dead rivals by nickname. Contrast was so jarring it went viral nationally. It made Jacksonville drill a topic that people outside Florida had to pay attention to. Jacksonville law enforcement had been watching Spinabenz for years before that song. They publicly identified him as a violent gang member. He had a 2017 conviction for witness tampering and a concealed firearm. After Who I Smoke blew up, he was arrested again for possession of a firearm by a convicted felon, but a jury found him not guilty. Then he got arrested for tampering with his ankle monitor and did 6 months. What people on both sides of the Jacksonville conflict and law enforcement have consistently said about Spinabenz is that for him, the music and the streets weren't two separate things. The people being named in the songs weren't just enemies in a song, they were real people in a real war. The lyrics were understood on both sides as acknowledgments, not art. Has he been charged with murder? No. But Jacksonville law enforcement has described him as an active participant in a conflict that left a significant number of people dead over several years. His rivals made the exact same claims about him in their own music. He's still out making music, and the streets down there are still watching. But if you thought Jacksonville had only a few hitters, we're about to cover a member that lived on the exact same block as K-So, in the same crew, in the same war, except his story hits different because of the insane chaos he survived in. Yungeen Ace. And yeah, here we come to a guy probably all of you know, Yungeen Ace from Jacksonville, ATK, same crew as Queso. His father is the man prosecutors described as the operational head of the gang. His brother Queso, as we just covered, is now convicted of capital murder. On June 5th, 2018, Ace was in a car with his best friend Royale Smith, his younger brother Trevin Bullard, and another young man named Jerkaby Groover. They'd been out celebrating Trevin's birthday at a restaurant near the St. John's Town Center. A car pulled up alongside them on Town Center Parkway and opened fire. Ace got shot 8 times and miraculously survived, leaving all of his 3 friends 6 feet in the ground. He's talked about that night publicly. The guilt of being the one who suggested going out, the weight of it being his little brother's birthday. That kind of thing doesn't leave you. You can hear it in every song he made after that night. That's not music industry pain, that's real. But here's what people outside Jacksonville missed. In the context of the ATK versus 6 Block and KTA war, surviving that shooting didn't make Ace a bystander. It made him the fuel to everything that followed. The rivals who were responsible for his brother's death showed up to photograph themselves at the gravesite. That level of disrespect wasn't just cruel, it accelerated everything that came after. The retaliatory violence that followed included killings that eventually became murder charges against Queso, against other ATK members, and people on the rival side. Julio Fulio, the face of 6 Block, was murdered in Tampa in June 2024. The war that started before that birthday dinner in 2018 left a trail of bodies that ran through multiple cities and multiple years. I'm unable to even count how many souls were dropped during those years. Ace himself has not been charged, but investigators and prosecutors have consistently placed him at the center of this ecosystem. A man who lost his brother and 2 best friends in one night, whose father is alleged to run the gang, whose brother is now convicted of murder, and who spent years watching his neighborhood keep swallowing people around him. What exactly happened in between all of that? Jacksonville law enforcement is still very much paying attention. Now we're about to go to something recent. Somebody who actually served federal time, got out, and then allegedly picked up right where he left off, with an ankle monitor on and a plan that almost nobody could make up. Pooh Shiesty. Some people get out of federal prison and lay low. Pooh Shiesty allegedly got out and held Gucci Mane at gunpoint with an AK-style rifle over a record contract dispute. But if you're new, just so you get the full context, let's take it from the beginning. By 2020, Pooh Shiesty was one of the hottest new artists in the country, signed to Gucci Mane's 1017 Records. His debut project went gold. Back in Blood with Lil Durk went platinum. The kid was genuinely ascending, giving hopes of becoming a worldwide star. Then in October 2020, he drove a rented McLaren to a hotel in Bay Harbor Islands, Florida, to buy marijuana and sneakers. The deal went bad immediately. Shiesty allegedly pulled out a Draco and shot both sellers, then drove off with the product without paying. An LV bag with over $40,000 in cash fell out of the driver's seat of the McLaren as he left. He wasn't lucky that day because surveillance cameras got everything. A separate incident at a Miami strip club in May 2021 added another weapons assault charge on top. In January 2022, he pleaded guilty to a single firearms conspiracy count and got 63 months. The charge that could have put him away for life got dropped as part of the deal. He served his time and walked out, being placed on house arrest with an ankle monitor. Then January 2026 happened, and here's where our story gets a twist. Shiesty, his father Lontrell Williams Sr., his label partner Big 30, and 6 other people set up what looked like a business meeting with Gucci Mane at a Dallas recording studio. Once Gucci was inside the building, Shiesty allegedly pulled him into a separate room, pulled out an AK-style pistol, and forced him to sign a release from his 1017 Records contract at gunpoint. At the same time, the other defendants allegedly held the rest of the people in the studio at gunpoint and robbed them of cash, jewelry, and Gucci Mane's wedding band. The total alleged take was around $450,000. Investigators said his ankle monitor data placed him away from his approved residence during the incident. License plate readers tracked the crew traveling from Memphis to Dallas together. His own father allegedly printed the contract release form at a stable store a few hours before the meeting. His lawyer went to court and pointed out that the FBI hadn't even interviewed Gucci Mane or any of the other victims before making arrests, and that prosecutors didn't actually have the physical contract they claimed Shiesty forced Gucci to sign. The judge still kept him detained, and he's awaiting trial after pleading not guilty. Gucci Mane dropped a song called Crash Dummy, referencing the alleged betrayal within days of the arrest. If the allegations are true, there is no way to overstate the recklessness of that decision. And now we get to the one that ties everything together. One of the biggest names in rap music over the last decade, the head of a criminal enterprise that was allegedly funding murders in multiple states simultaneously. Lil Durk. Durk Banks, or Lil Durk, founded OTF in 2010, went from Chicago's deepest drill scene to one of the most commercially successful rappers alive. Grammy winner, 3 top 10 Billboard Hot 100 singles, won the Grammy for Best Melodic Rap Performance in 2024 for All My Life with J. Cole. On the morning of October 17, 2024, 5 OTF members were arrested simultaneously in Chicago in coordinated federal raids. That same morning, the FBI got information that Durk had 3 international flights booked and was headed for the airport. They caught him near Miami International Airport airport as he was approaching a private jet to Italy. Put the handcuffs on him right there. But as diverse as these cases get, the federal case starts with King Von. In November 2020, King Von was shot and killed outside an Atlanta lounge after a confrontation with associates of Quando Rondo. Von was Durk's closest friend and one of OTF's most prominent members. According to prosecutors, after Von's death, Durk placed a monetary bounty on Quando Rondo's head, but his only mistake was that he didn't keep it private. He put it out to enough people in the crew that the information eventually led to an organized cross-country hit. In August 2022, 5 OTF associates flew from Chicago to California on flights paid for with OTF credit cards. They rented cars. They tracked Quando Rondo across Los Angeles for hours. They found him at a gas station near the Beverly Center Mall. They opened fire with multiple weapons, including a machine gun that had been modified to shoot fully automatic. Quando was inside the station when it started. He wasn't hit, but 24-year-old cousin Lil Pab was standing next to the car and dropped right there. That was the original center of the federal case. But then the case got bigger. Prosecutors connected Durk to the January 2022 murder of Stephon Mack in Chicago. Mack was allegedly the leader of a gangster disciples faction, believed to be responsible for the 2021 killing of Durk's brother D. Thang. According to investigators, Durk put a bounty on Mack too, and 2 men were paid to carry it out. A federal agent wrote in a court filing that Durk was and still is offering money for people to kill those responsible for his brother's murder, and more specifically, offering to pay money for any gangster disciple that is killed. His 2022 song, Ah Ha, was released about a month after Mack was shot, and prosecutors argued the lyrics could reasonably be read as referencing exactly that retaliation. Text messages on a co-conspirator's phone reference Durk and OTF in the context of the payment. By August 2026, the case had expanded to 4 superseding indictments: violent crimes in aid of racketeering, 20,000 pages of discovery. The FBI went through phone records, credit card transactions, social media histories, OTF financial accounts, jail call logs. They even argued in court that a music video Durk released in June 2026 depicted a Quando Rondo lookalike being killed and tried to use it as evidence of ongoing criminal intent. His lawyers said the whole prosecution was built on music and associations rather than provable criminal conduct. They pointed to the Grammy, the philanthropy, the community. Work in Chicago, they challenged the use of lyrics as evidence at every step. His trial starts on August 20th, 2026, and he's facing life in federal prison if convicted. This is how far retaliation can go, making you go from the most famous rapper on the planet to spending the rest of your life in a federal cell. And look, the thing that ties all of these names together isn't the music. It's what the music couldn't cover up. You can win a Grammy, get a major deal, stand on stage next to a president. None of that changes what you built in the streets before any of that existed. The people who knew you before the cameras aren't impressed by the credit, and the people who had beef with you definitely don't care about the streams. The real numbers on these names will never fully come out. The streets don't file police reports, but the indictments, the convictions, the murder cases still open with no arrests years later. That's enough to tell you that what you heard in the songs wasn't fiction. And if you enjoyed this one, you'll definitely want to check out these videos on your screen next. Have a good one.